All right, now we're live again because I did stuff. Audio seems good. I will switch to the. Don't get sick before PAX. I'll hit you if you get me sick.
I cough in your general direction.
No.
No.
Scott, stay. he might be.
Bar.
Blah.
Bar.
Just don't barf on the mic.
Bar.
It's okay. I'll get rid of your barf.
Monday. Lunes.
It's Monday, November 13th, 2017. I'm Rim.
I am Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we're talking about the IME vulnerability that you probably don't know about that definitely affects your PC.
Should we just talk about IME in general?
Yeah, probably. Saving this. Okay. I guess the problem is it's kind of a complex thing to talk about because a lot of people don't even know it exists, let alone they can hurt
That's
them.
why we should just talk about what it is and not worry too much about the specific.
Well, I guess we'll talk about what it is and why you should know what it is.
Let's go on to the other parts of the show first.
All right. So
the main bit does not come first.
So I ran, Emily and I, we ran a race yesterday, but it wasn't our usual like 5K running races that we run with the normal like NYC runner type thing.
Longer,
it was actually,
longer, shorter?
It was the same 5K because that's the default race for most people.
Oh, okay.
But we ran it. It was like a Rangers thing.
Oh, you actually did that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was yesterday because they kept advertising it so much during every game. And I think I said one time, like, "Oh, I guess you could do that."
Yeah, and we totally.
I guess
did
you
it.
actually did it. All right.
I kept saying like,
are you
Emily's
faster?
Like,
are you faster than Lundqvist?
So a few Buzhnevich actually came.
Bunevis?
Yeah,
Okay.
and a whole bunch of retired Rangers, like famous ones.
So the people who were playing did not come.
Yeah.
They could have used some exercise. They don't got to play until Wednesday. Why don't they show up?
Of course, they were asking Boo about VC's teeth.
They're gone.
Well, two of them are gone. One of them, they found one in his lip.
Yep.
Like, he spat and only one came out. And they're like, where's the other one? And it was in anyway. That's all gross. But
yeah.
So we ran the race. It was actually super fun. And when the Rangers are involved, as opposed to just like the running clubs, there's a lot more hullabaloo around it because there's a lot more money involved.
You don't say.
But it was actually a pretty good race. And I came in 15th overall.
Oh, okay.
Out of like 1,000 people.
So who was in first place? Bunevis?
Yeah. None of the Rangers people were in like anywhere near the front runners. They all started at the front.
But I mean, Bunevis is like, he doesn't only play in the AHL. He's on the New York Rangers. He's a professional athlete getting paid plenty of money. How come he's not faster than you?
I don't know if he actually ran. He was just there.
Oh, okay.
But a bunch of other people ran, and they did not finish at the top.
Well, they're old.
So my time was like 21:13, which is pretty good for someone my age. What's fascinating to me is that I was, I think, 15th overall. I was 14th overall in men because the woman, like the fastest woman, actually was faster than me. She got a really good time. I saw her.
Professional athlete of some kind?
She looked it. She finished like right ahead of me, and she ran at a steady pace like the entire time, and I could not catch up to her despite
she's
trying.
probably looking at you like, not letting this woman pass me.
But they posted video, and I can see I actually like sprinted and passed a whole bunch of people right at the end. But I was like 8th in my age group, and all the people who ran faster than me ran way faster than me in my age group, meaning I could do better. It's not just old man Rim. It's Rim needs to train harder.
Or you're not a professional athlete and they are?
No, I think they all, it's kind of like, those people we know who biking is their primary hobby as opposed to one of many hobbies. Like, they only have one hobby and it's biking.
Listen, this DNA only gets you so far. You might not be able to be any faster.
I'm pretty happy that I can run like 14th, 15th overall in a moderately big race.
How many people are in the race?
Like 800 or 900,000.
Did they charge you money to be in the race for their charity or whatever?
Yeah, but all the money went to charity. So it was Garden of Dreams and this like healthcare thing. They split it 50-50. Garden of Dreams actually does good stuff.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You could do worse. You could also do better.
You could do a lot worse than Garden of Dreams.
Sure.
You could do better too.
You could do a lot better also.
Yeah. So yeah, got some tech news.
Yeah, so, I don't know about anyone else, right? But for many years now, I'm pretty You know, I know a lot of people out there are like full Google, full Amazon, full Apple, full Microsoft, right? Whatever. I sort of spread my bones out a lot.
You do. I am full Google, though. I am like 100% doubled down on Google. Like,
I use some Google, some Apple, some Amazon, some Microsoft. I use a little bit of everything.
Other than
whoever the best one is.
So I did split because I was using Amazon's cloud storage, like not the server side stuff. That's a whole
little Adobe in there.
But I was using the Amazon like backup, like cloud, like
I use that too.
consumer-facing cloud backup. I'm gonna stop using it because they ruined it, and now it is too expensive for what I do.
Anyway, so. But for many years, you know, as a result of using things like Google Inbox and such, right, I've used the Chrome browser primarily, right?
So why? Because the reasons why I used to be pretty hardcore Firefox, and the reasons I switched to Chrome mostly centered around the fact that I am so Google, and Google works just better in Chrome.
Well, because I was using Firefox when it was Phoenix.
Yep.
Right, when the style of the time, my onion on my belt, right? And the reason I switched to Chrome in those days is simply that it was just faster, right? It was a time period where Firefox, you know, got away. Originally, Mozilla was this one program that had web browsing, email, Composer, and news groups all in one app. And it was slow as balls. And they made Firefox, which is just the web browsing part of Mozilla, and then they removed all the crap from it.
And a lot of neckbeard's fears were that if you took all that nonsense out of a mainstream browser, no one would do any of that nonsense anymore. They were kind of right.
Well, I mean, for Composer to make web pages, not necessary.
Yep.
Right.
And BBS is like, I'm sorry, I know you. That tech is dead.
It was dead. I didn't use it when I had it.
Message boards were dead.
And then Thunderbird, people stopped using that because everyone uses webmail or something, right? So anyway.
I'm amazed when I run into someone who has an email client that's like using POP.
Except for Outlook and Exchange. Yeah, I don't know why anyone has an email client.
Yep.
Anyway.
Even then, like using Outlook, like that's a marginal use case at best.
Anyway. So for many years, it's like on my computer at work, for example, I'll have Chrome for my normal personal stuff, and then I'll do my work in Firefox just to have a separate browser.
I do the same thing at work.
I know that you can actually open Chrome and have like two different Chromes that have two different profiles, but in practice, the user interface of that didn't work so well, and like I would click on links and they'd open up in the wrong Chrome.
Yep.
Because Chrome is your default browser, but it doesn't know that like, aha, when I click on a link in an email in Outlook, I want it to open in the Chrome with this profile. And when I click on a link
Also, a big part of that was at my previous job, I was basically the social media and like marketing manager. So I'd be tweeting and like doing social media stuff on behalf of the company. And I wanted an extra layer of, Rim, it's Firefox. Don't tweet that like skeleton shit from that account.
Yeah, anyway. So I just use Firefox for work. And plus, you know, at work, you know, I don't want to use the ad block because we have ads on our site at work that I got to see, right? But I don't want to browse anything at all without an ad block ever, so I only use it to visit our own sites.
Also, be wary because ad blockers, depending on how you do it, have access to data because they're an application that's actually inspecting content.
Yeah.
So ad blockers, in a way, will sidestep SSL, TLS. So okay, they can. They see the content. Be wary of that. I digress. But if you're doing stuff for work, like you work at a real company, don't just run ad block without knowing what it's doing if you're accessing corporate stuff with it.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
But I mean, corporate stuff, you don't need to block ads on.
Exactly. So that's why, again, I use Firefox for work stuff and I use Chrome for like my life.
But what's happening right now is Firefox finally, right? They've done this many times where they're like, oh, we got a new update. It's actually faster and better. We got a new update. It's actually faster and better. But no, for reals this time. Like, not even joking. Actually for reals. Not Boy Who Cried Wolf. There is a version of Firefox. It's set in stone. You can get it right now as of this podcast on Monday night. But
it's called what? Quantum?
Yeah, it officially releases tomorrow. It's Firefox 57. I tried it out. It is faster than Chrome, no question. On two Windows computers on a Mac and a Windows computer that I tried.
So my
question
for you is because the faster web browser in quotes in the modern era has meant as much to me as people who like worry about the cache latency on their RAM.
No. This is like faster in terms of benchmarks. I can't say. What I can say is that like without any sort of benchmark tool whatsoever, you type a URL into this site, you push enter. It appears. You go to Safari or Chrome or whatever, and there is there's a visual noticeable delay in rendering right? And also the responsiveness of the page while scrolling up and down, moving about, clicking to go to the next page, right? It feels like you just got a new computer with a fresh install when you use this Firefox.
So
at least that is my experience on 2 completely different computers. So
it does lose the Google Direct integration stuff that Chrome has, which is a big part of how I use Chrome.
Nah. You lose the Chrome sync. Big deal. Does Firefox sync? It does the same thing.
Part of it, too, is that I use the notifications, but also I use a hardware token for my two-factor, and that only works with Chrome right now.
Nothing I do only works with Chrome.
Yeah, hard two-factor
the only
works
feature,
with Chrome.
the only feature that I would lose by going to Firefox is that Chrome has a feature where you can be looking at a web page on Chrome on, say, your computer, open up Chrome on your mobile device, and then be like, show me my links that are currently open in tabs on my computer, and then click on one to open it.
That is a good feature, too, that I imagine I will also lose if I go to this Firefox.
You didn't even know about the feature, and you've never used it. Also,
actually, I've been poking around with, remember how Windows Phone used to
that feature has been around for years, by the way.
Have a thing that
Chrome.
integrates with Windows. Like you can say, hey, Windows, there's my Windows Phone, and do like a lot of that kind of stuff. Because Windows Phone is dead, you can just do that with Android now.
Yeah. Anyway.
And it's kind of cool. I've been playing with it.
Anyway. Yeah, there's nothing that I use. Like, I even stopped using Chrome, because Chrome on iOS is just worse than Safari on iOS. So I just even though I was losing that one feature that I used occasionally, Safari on iOS is just so much better. I only have Chrome installed on iOS because for some reason Jackbox only works in Chrome and not Safari on my phone and my
this is interesting. So I got some stats from this article. Right now, Chrome is 60% of desktop browser usage. If you told Rim and Scott when we were in college that any non-Microsoft browser would be that percentage, I would not believe you because the world has changed a lot.
Well, no, I mean, when Chrome came out, when Firefox came out and was called Phoenix and I started using it, I knew that was the shit. I didn't know.
Oh, I did know too, but
I didn't know at the time if we'd get non-nerds to use it, but
that was what I'd expect.
I
thought that corporate
it was definitely catching on big time.
I always thought that corporations would never let people use non-Microsoft browser, and then the revolution happened, and pretty much most companies force you to use Chrome or Firefox.
In fact, there was a time, is a funny story, the RIT library had a little stage in it at one point. I don't know if it's still there. And you could sign up to do talks there. And I was like, so I figured out how to sign up, and I signed up. I'm like, I know, I'll go in there, and I'll do a presentation about Phoenix and get people to use it, because people don't fucking know, and this is RIT, they definitely want to know, and right? And then, so I sign up, and I'm like, yeah, I need a projector with a VGA cable so I can, demo this shit, and a laptop, because I didn't have one at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
You could check laptops out from the library.
Right, so I show up, and the projector's not there. And I went to the library desk. I'm like, where is it? They're like, we don't know. And then I looked around, and there's all these people studying, and it would be super awkward to just suddenly do a presentation to people studying. I thought they would like set up chairs facing the stage or something because I made a schedule. So I just left, and no one said anything, or I never heard from anyone.
I mean, the only alternative is to do what I did at that AnimeCon long ago when one person showed up to my panel, is just loudly start doing the panel.
I mean, I would have been fine doing that, but I couldn't demo Phoenix without the laptop and projector. I needed those necessary equipment. I couldn't just do it by talking.
So the article, what's interesting, the other statistic, let's see. Quote, if you're already a Firefox user, you should receive an automatic upgrade when it launches November 14th, so tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Chances are you're not a user.
Yep.
13% of desktop users using Firefox.
Well, I hope... Just try it out. If you're one of those people who left Firefox, or maybe you're concerned about like privacy and stuff like that. Listen, Firefox is no skin in any games where Google, Microsoft, Apple all do. Apple is really good on privacy though, at least. Google's making money off eyeballs. Mozilla's making money off nothing.
Yep.
One thing though, if you clean install Firefox, go to the settings and make sure you change your default search engine from Yahoo to Google.
Yeah. Though, I'm just glad this is happening because whenever one of anything starts to run away with the game, it's always dangerous. And I'm glad that there is competition again here.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to switch away from, make Firefox my personal browser and then use Chrome for the work browser.
I'm going to hold off again because I use hardware two-factor.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't, like, I don't have to. Like, I can use the Google Auth app. I actually have 2 different ways to do two-factor, but I prefer to use my hardware token. And I don't think that'll work with the new Firefox anytime soon. So in other news, this isn't purely tech, but it's an interesting thing that you should bear in mind, because we've talked about this a lot. But advertising, we just mentioned ad block. The biggest danger with the fact that we're all moving to these models like Netflix, where people pay for ad-free content, is that advertisers are desperate to do anything to advertise to someone who they know has enough money to pay not to see ads.
Right, we've talked about this before, where it's like, aha, the people are buying ads and it's free content, but that means the people watching don't have any fucking money. You're paying to make ads go away. Oh, those are people who have money. We really want to show ads to them. They have enough money to make ads go away. That means they have money to spend on stuff. If we advertise to them, we can get some of that money.
Yep.
And now this is, when you're a company like Netflix, it's like, these advertisers will pay even more money for us to show these ads to the people who are paying to make the ads go away. What do? Charge more money to the people who are paying to make ads go away? Show ads? That's why, Hulu, there's still like a few shows that I don't watch any of those garbage shows, but you still see ads even if you pay to make ads go away.
So the needle's shifting again toward the advertisers, because Amazon is apparently developing a free ad-supported complement to Prime streaming video.
Oh, that's not them paying to show ads to people who are paying for Prime.
They're not putting ads in the stuff you're already paying for, though apparently they have done that a few times.
No, this is, if you don't even have Amazon Prime, you can watch Amazon Prime streaming video with ads on it for free. That's what this is.
So apparently I didn't know.
It's pretty much the opposite of what Hulu did. Hulu's like, well, if you want to see any Hulus now, you got to have an account and pay. Amazon Prime's like, oh, well, you know what? Now you can watch Amazon Prime Video even if you don't have Amazon Prime.
So apparently Amazon has, I'm going to quote this here, Amazon put ads inside NFL games that people were seeing on Prime.
So I have Twitch Prime, which gets rid of all ads. I was watching the Rocket League World Championships yesterday.
Did the Rocket League people put their own ad in?
There were ads as part of the stream on Twitch that were not Twitch ads using the Twitch ad feature.
That's one important thing on Google. You're not allowed to fucking do that.
The event was sponsored by Twitch, yet I'm pretty sure that's against the Twitch terms of service.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to do that on Google.
And because Twitch doesn't get a cut of those ads, even though they're sponsoring this event. I wonder what was up with that, but I was pissed when I saw an ad that I could not get rid of.
Yep, and the danger here, the reason I bring this up, is that anytime a company starts to edge back into the free supported by ads model, that is what is on the verge of really fucking up the games industry right now regarding these free-to-play games and their loot boxes. Because if that becomes viable...
That's a gambling issue, not an ad issue.
No, but if there is a model that is the shitty model and a company realizes that way more people are willing to go the shitty way than the good way, they'll edge that way. So if Amazon decided that they can make more money by having only ad versions as opposed to paid versions, they would do it. All these companies would. So right now, Netflix seems to be the only hardline company, and we'll see how this all goes.
It doesn't matter, because
Okay, that was good. That's so good. But anyway, things of the day. So I want to point out, Scott came to me and he said, and I quote, "My thing of the day is only a picture."
Yep.
Now, I have done similar things in the past, and all I could say to Scott was, imagine if the situations are reversed, and I said these words to you, what would your reaction be?
I would say, Rim, what kind of thing of the day is just a picture? Your thing of the day is probably crap. My thing of the day is going to be way better.
Yep.
And here we have a case, though, where the picture that is my thing of the day, it's actually a tweet with a picture in it.
Yeah.
But
hey, Scott, my thing of the day is this tweet.
Yeah. And I go, Rim, I got a thing of the day. It's just a tweet, basically really just the picture in the tweet. But I'll bet money that not only is it better than anything of the day that you'll come up with, but it is also that you will admit it is better than anything in the day that you come up with.
This is so good.
But yeah, it's someone's Halloween costume from the nation of Japan. They are cosplaying as death.
It's so usually there's this situation in cosplay where sometimes someone has a really clever idea and they execute it the minimum possible way to make the joke. And the opposite side is the amazing costume that's very well put together, but it's a thing that I don't know about. Like,
it's not a joke.
Yeah, or it's like it's a beautifully done character from a game I don't know. Great. This is both well executed and high concept.
This is a very high concept. It gives me some inspiration for costumes of my own that I will not do. I'll talk about doing and not actually do.
Chris typed death in the stream because that's what we're talking about, and Google flagged it as possibly offensive, and I had to manually approve.
It's a death threat.
The word death.
Death.
I should report him for making death threats, get him banned from Google. I totally could right here.
He should write Shinderu instead.
So my thing of the day is just this music video that I stumbled upon called Float.
Is it better than my thing of the day?
I think it's equal but different.
Okay.
Look at this owl, Scott. This is a good owl, right?
That's a good owl.
That is the kind of owl.
Why is the owl also a lighter?
The owl is not only also a lighter, but is also a like laser spewing death machine. The owl basically saves the day in every situation. This is a music video.
But I like cute owls though.
Yeah, this owl is cute. He spins his head. He pops up all the time. And it is just this music video about space pirates and pulp sci-fi animated nonsense. And the music video is just really good, and the song's really good. And I think you should just watch this. That's all I got to say about it. All right. I'm a little phlegmy, but I think it's because I ran in the fucking freezing cold in that race yesterday.
That's also what I am, is phlegmy. You can't say I caught your phlegminess, or you caught my phlegminess. I think everyone's phlegmy because of cold.
Yep, everyone in my office is phlegmy, and everyone's blaming each other. Like, whoever gets seriously sick first is at fault for all of this.
Blame the weather going from 60 to 30.
Yep, and me running a race. When I got, it was like 40 when we got there.
Well, you could also run slower, and then you wouldn't have been...
But it was still cold. Running slower would just make me colder.
You could have worn like a nice winter coat and just walked.
I wore actually really fancy gear. I was not... It was just that the air was cold. I had to breathe the cold air.
Wear a thing over your face.
That does not make the air warmer. And if the thing I could wear that would make the air actually warmer is the kind of thing I would wear if it was like below 0.
Oh, a space helmet?
And I was skiing.
Space helmet?
Yeah, I'm not going to wear a space helmet. All right, let's see.
Space helmet?
Anyway, in the meta moment, the book club book was the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and I have now read the entire trilogy. So if
that was fast.
All I want to say is that I posted some thoughts. The end of the thread in the book club in the GeekNights Forum, which you should join because the GeekNights Forum is pretty fucking baller. But you should just join it. Use a link to it on our website. It's great. But we're talking about the book. And
our website is frontrowcrew.com, by the way.
Yep, and community.frontrowcrew.com is our new forum, which is pretty
forum.frontrowcrew.com is the old forum, which is locked in read-only mode for eternity and is slightly broken but still readable.
Yep.
Forever.
But in the bottom of the thread about the 5th season, we're starting to talk about the full trilogy a little bit, edging into spoilers. But without spoiling anything at all, I will say that people who have... I can see why some people were not satisfied with the 2nd and 3rd books in terms of what the mysteries actually were and what some of the answers were. I am 100% satisfied. I am really happy with knowing what the deal is with the Guardians, knowing what the deal is with the evil Earth.
Well, that's good to know that I'm going to know what the deal is. It's not some secret of space that will never be revealed.
There are some things you don't learn the full deal, but it's totally fine.
At least it's not the cool things like snake people.
No, seriously, I like all the things you care about, I guarantee are answered to your satisfaction. And the direction those answers go are a little bit Ghost in the Shell and a lot Evangelion.
Well, those are two things I like.
Yep. I am so 100% happy with the way this trilogy ended. I have nothing but positive things to say. If you like the first book in the GeekNights Book Club, you should just read the rest of the books. They're great. And I'm gonna pick the new book soon. I'm really, really tempted to pick that new translation of the Odyssey.
How long is that?
You know exactly how long the Odyssey is. It's the Odyssey. We've both read it.
What's the new? Why is it? Translated newly any different than an older translation?
When was the last time you read the Odyssey?
The pop-up book.
Okay, so I've been hankering to read the Odyssey again for like a decade now, and I just haven't.
Okay, Homa.
But there's apparently this new translation of the Odyssey.
Why is it better?
It's better in the same way that...
Or different.
The newer Penguin translation of The Count of Monte Cristo was better. it's more colloquial and modern, and it takes appropriate liberties with the translation of specific words and themes to make it a more modern flowing reading while maintaining everything that's good about the Odyssey.
I'm not reading two different ones if you choose that, so we're not going to be able to compare two different translations.
I am also not going to reread the old translations I may have read.
I will compare it to the pop-up book, though.
Yeah. God, that pop-up book was so good.
I just saw it the other day because I was looking at my shelf.
I can't... The Cyclops and the spear that pops out is so good. That is a choice pop-up book. So I'm leaning heavily toward picking this new translation of the Odyssey to learn about the journey of this complicated man. But I could be swayed. I got some other books that I'm thinking about.
Oh, so this isn't a definite pick here?
It's not a definite pick. So I am soliciting comments. Will you read the Odyssey if you have never read it before, if I pick this good modern translation? Because if you've never read the Odyssey, what's wrong with you? That's like required high school reading.
How do you not know about Cyclopses and sirens and, all that cool shit? And
also the fact that Odysseus is kind of a shithead and kind of a jerk.
Listen, people like jerks.
Yeah, but he is... He does good things, but he also does really shitty things. He's kind of a shithead, and it's just most people who read it don't seem to get that out of it. And if you have not read it, I want to find out if you think Odysseus is as much of a shithead as I think he is.
It's all about Poseidon, my boy.
Well, yeah, Poseidon is the biggest piece of shit,
but
I'll never say that out loud to his face because he'll fucking drown me. And
you live on an island. You live on an island.
Poseidon, seriously, like, you're cool. We're cool, right? Like, I'm just joking.
Okay, so actual meta moments. This weekend is PAX Unplugged. It is a PAX that is exclusively tabletop. We will be there doing a thing about Carcassonne. You can read the schedule yourself.
Yep.
If you're not already going, it might be too late. I don't know. Whatever.
Saturday is sold out.
It's in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. You want to go there except for PAX. That's the only reason you should go there.
Saturday is sold out. There are still 3-day badges.
Interesting.
Anyway,
other things.
Oh, and there's a thing I noticed. There are kid-specific badges for Sunday.
Are they free?
Yes. Sunday only. We're going to talk about that on a Tuesday show because I didn't notice that.
I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, PAX Unplugged, the tabletop-only PAX is in Pennsylvania this weekend, the first one ever. We'll be there. After that, the beginning of next year, the first 2 weeks are MagFest followed by PAX South. Boom, boom. That's how it's going to be.
We're going to be at both. We are definitely doing panels at MagFest because, like, they're in and it's mages.
And almost guaranteed PAX South panels.
Yeah, we're probably doing panels at PAX South, but I'll never say guaranteed because I do not have a contract signed.
PAX East 2018 badges just went on sale. I think Saturday is sold out. It's a 4-day con, though. You could go, like, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you don't have only Saturday is sold out. If you don't have a hotel, you're probably super fucked because
you're gonna have to find a hotel. Well, you can get a hotel. It will be far away.
Yeah, that sucks.
Or I think a lot of people just driving in. Look at that. It's like Thursday, Friday, Sunday. You can buy these easily. Not even sold out. Oh, Saturday completely sold out.
Yep.
So I guess a lot of people see PAX East as a 1-day, expo hall experience. But if you are actually a PAX person, you can experience a whole lot of PAX, the real way, and just, buy a scalp Saturday badge from somebody.
Yeah.
Or skip Saturday and enjoy Boston. You still get 3 days of PAX, which is as much PAX as you would have gotten last year.
Caveat.
And you'll still see the beginning and the finale. Saturday, what are you missing? Hope our panel's not Saturday.
You're missing the crowdedest day in the expo halls. I
hope our panel is not Saturday.
Yeah. But also...
Well, I hope it is, because that would be the crowdedest day.
PAX East is in April, so... the odds of it being a ridiculous Hothian nightmarescape of bitter cold are slightly lower.
Slightly.
It's Boston, but it means you might be able to go enjoy Boston because last year you would not have gone out and enjoyed Boston.
Cold.
You'd have hidden around a fire for the entire time. So yeah, let's talk about this Intel thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of ground to cover here.
All right, so you got to explain so people can understand this, right? There's a thing that came into existence in the late 2000s that people sort of knew about in theory, but Intel kept it a secret.
You'd see articles in like really deep nerd places saying, "Hey, there's this thing called IME. Do you know about it?"
But basically nowadays, in more recent times, like the past few months, more beans keep getting spilled about it, and the truth comes out. So here's what it is: the Intel Management Engine, right? And in theory, right, it has a good intentioned existence, right? You have a computer, it's got a CPU that's really complicated, right? And you got this operating system that nominally manages the CPU and the scheduling of processes and everything else, right? So the operating system handles all the CPU biz and everything else is talking, through the operating system and whatnot, right? But there's some things that perhaps even the operating system shouldn't be trusted to manage, right? So, for example, power management, right? Operating systems aren't really always that good at putting the computer to sleep, for example, or waking it up from on LAN, or these sorts of things, right? It's
I'll give you an analogy. This is not relevant to CPUs, but in hard drives, a solid-state disk, right? So when you put data on a solid-state disk, you have this interface with the disk. But inside the disk, it has its own hardware and software that is managing where the bits actually go. Because one, the OS and the users don't need to know that. You just need the data to be there. And two, if the OS was going to manage that, it might fuck it up because there's a lot of internal details that are complicated, and the manufacturer of that hard disk knows better than you.
Yep. So this Intel Management Engine, right, the truth that we have learned about it is now this, right? So basically, it is an operating system. It's Minix, right, which is an OS, and is now, because we have discovered that it is what the Intel Management Engine is based on, it is actually the most deployed operating system on Earth.
Minix is basically
because every Intel chip since like 2008 or 9 has it. Whether you're running Windows, OS X, whatever, you got that Intel Management Engine because everyone's using Intel CPUs.
Now, we're not going to get too deep into the details of Minix because it has a story.
It's an open source Unix operating system that can be really small.
Yes, but the way
That's why it's Minix.
It is not a light or stripped down version of Linux. It is its own thing.
It is a POSIX Unixy operating system that is just really tiny.
And if you wonder what POSIX is, that is out of scope for this podcast.
Anyway, well, you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm running Windows. How does this other operating system, how does this work, right? How exactly does this function? I'm trying to explain it to someone who doesn't know anything about how CPUs work. So basically, you know how on your computer, you could become root and you're allowed to do things that you're not allowed to do when you're not root. You got to type in your administrator password or whatever.
Yep, you want to install some software.
Use some sudo, right? Push the yes button when Windows says, hey, you want to be administrator right now? It's like, yes, right?
Yep.
CPUs actually have that same kind of thing, right? The x86 architecture in particular has what are known as rings. Now, originally, back in the day, there was just ring 0 and like rings 1, 2, 3. I don't think anyone uses 1 and 2 anymore. I think it's pretty much 3, 0. And then they added all these negative ones, like -1, -2, -3, right?
Yep. And for what it's worth, as an IT major, I never really did assembly programming in our IT.
Clearly not.
And yeah, of course not. That's not a requirement of IT.
No.
But the things I know and learned about, its CPU architecture, are on a higher level than this, and I've never cared about how memory is actually protected.
Right. So you got basically almost every.
I just assume, the OS does, that it is protected. I don't care how.
Right. Almost everything in a computer, right, is pretty much just writing and reading memory from locations, right? So you want to, talk to the network card. Well, the network card probably has some memory location, and when you move memory to that location, then the CPU sends that data out. Instead of writing it to, like, say, RAM, it writes it to wherever the network card is, and that's how you send on the lowest level talk to other things in the computer, is by reading and writing data from addresses. Right? It's how you talk to the RAM. It's how you talk to anything, right?
Yep.
So if you're running an assembly program, and that assembly program is at ring 3, where the normal user programs run, and you try to say, yo, CPU, yeah? See that memory location? I want you to write these bits there.
No, Windows is there.
Yeah, it's like, dude, that's where the Linux kernel is in memory. You're not allowed to write to that spot. And the CPU itself, depending on what you're doing, will stop you from reading or writing memory to different locations based on what ring of security your assembly instructions have permission for.
Now, what Scott just said is the very important distinction, because an operating system will protect things. Like if I try to mess with files or something that I'm not supposed to, or install software, the operating system has all these controls. But if I installed a different operating system, then the controls might be different or might
Right.
be non-existent.
So your operating system and Linux kernel, whatever you're running, Windows is running at ring 0, which is when you become root. You're running at ring 0, right? You have permission to access all the devices and do all the user stuff that even stuff users can't do.
Yep.
Everything is open to you basically, as far as like a user of a CPU is concerned, a human being. But at rings -1, -2, -3. There's all sorts of stuff going on that the operating system can't mess with. The computer it's built into the hardware, right? The code that is running, firmwares and whatnot, to manage power and CPU stuff, and whatever else Intel decides that the operating system shouldn't mess with, it just happens, right? So this Minix operating system, when you turn your computer on, turns on, has a little bit of RAM that only belongs to it. So a piece of your RAM is like locked away. If you tried to write code that was like read from that RAM,
it's like what RAM?
Right.
What?
If you tried to read data from that memory location and you're running your code as root on your normal operating system, right? You would just get back a bunch of Fs or an error. Or who knows what would happen? But
does it actually use your RAM chips or does it have its own embedded storage?
No, it's an operating system running on your computer, right? It doesn't have any like the code of it is stored in the CPU, Northbridge, Southbridge. No, they don't know where it is actually. I think it moved into the CPU itself, like this code in there. But it's like a normal program. It loads into memory when the computer starts in your RAM. If you could use a super microscope and look at your RAM while it's functioning and read the zeros and ones and look at the electrons, you could read the program in your RAM after it loaded in there, right? And then how does it run? It sends assembly instructions to the CPU to be executed. Those assembly instructions just run at ring -3 and can do whatever the fuck they want. So if you were able...
Hey, take these bits in this part of memory, I don't care if it's protected by anything, and move them over here.
Right, so under normal circumstances, if someone roots your computer, right, and they become root, they can run assembly instructions at ring 0, which would give them permission to basically, you're already boned, right? They're turning on your webcam, they're reading all your files on your hard drive, they're doing everything, right? But if you can run assembly instructions on a computer at ring -1, -2, -3, right? Then not only can you do all those things, obviously with much greater difficulty, because you're going to have to just like you're working on the assembly level, trying to figure out, like, all right, where in memory is this webcam? Let me try to talk to it with assembly.
Like, think of it like if you were trying to hack someone's hard drive by poking wires into the side with a voltimeter figuring out what's going on.
But listen, if you can do it, it's worth doing, and it's definitely within the capabilities of a single human being, let alone an organized group with money. Now, right? It can be done easily, especially since the IME has access to like the network card. They could just upload your data, download your data, all kinds of stuff. And here's the real problem: is that your code that's let's say you write an a virus checker that's running as what? Root? You can't even see this shit happening. You could put a rootkit on someone's computer running at this low level that is undetectable. Completely undetectable, you wouldn't even know. The only way to know that anything's happening is that if you somehow very closely examine the CPU and noticed, aha, the CPU didn't execute my instructions, it executed some other instructions for a second, and then it went back to executing my instructions again.
So think about that. You could have a perfectly clean Windows OS that is literally not compromised.
You could have a motherboard and a CPU that have been compromised.
Yep.
And that physically. It's like, well, what am I going to do, burn them?
Now, these kinds of problems have been a problem in the enterprise world for a long time because when you're managing servers, like real world, like practical examples, you often need out-of-band ways to control things. So there's a lot of ways to like control a computer from the outside, like from a special network or a special connection or a special card you stick in that could do similar sorts of things, and securing those is a big part of corporate stuff. But this is that built into every computer automatically.
Yeah, I imagine if you're able to compromise the management engine of, say, a server farm or like you would not simply spy on them. You would simply take their computers and start mining coins, because you could basically schedule all the CPU cycles for yourself and none for whatever software is actually running on those machines. So suddenly all these computers are not doing that. Basically all appear to be frozen because they just stop executing the instructions that the operating system wants to execute, and they're executing some other instructions, and you can't even see what's happening.
You could even, I guess, be clever and have the OS be it minimally responsive and just make it think that it's got plenty of space, like plenty of capacity.
You could you could send some fake screenshots to the video card so it looks like something's happening when nothing's actually happening.
So this kind of problem, like, people have always talked about it. Like Scott said, like, people have, for a while, people have been like, hey, do you know this IME thing is here? What if someone, like,
Yeah, it's always been this theoretical but known threat, but only like super hardcore crazy security nuts who are like, I'm getting an open source computer with open source hardware because I can't stand the threat of this Intel management engine. The government, they got my computer and but you know, they probably do.
Like, it was theoretical in the same way that if any of you are our age or young or older, you might remember Tempest vulnerabilities. Tempest was the idea, and it is gone now, but the idea was that with old monitors, CRTs, cathode ray tubes, the things that are literally obsolete now, and you don't have to worry about this, because they basically acted like big antennas, there's a lot of reasons why, theoretically, if someone had a monitor, you could get the same monitor, and if you use the right kind of signals processing and other antennas, you could pick up the electricity that was being, like the waves, the data that was being sent to the monitor.
The same way your radio could pick up sounds from the radio antenna.
Reconstruct the images, and there were real proof of concept implementations of these kinds of vulnerabilities.
Right, like imagine your neighbor has a monitor and some antennas, and then suddenly that monitor is showing everything that your monitor is showing.
And the ultra nerds who were crazy about this, if you ran like old PGP, you could literally display, they had a reader built in that had like quote unquote Tempest secure display. So you could read, and it was basically Notepad, but it was like gray with darker gray text to help limit the ability of a Tempest attack, which was 99% a theoretical back then. Only the ultra nerds cared about this. It was not a reasonable attack vector, but it was there.
Right, so the Intel management engine is mostly a concern to people because A, you know, while it does some things to manage your computer in an honest, feature-adding way, it's like you don't really need it. If you just removed it, you wouldn't even know that it was removed. As long as your computer turned on, you removed it in such a way that your computer still turned on. You would only miss it if you were using like motherboard power management features or something. Like you might not even know it's gone. But meanwhile, its existence creates this theoretical threat by which somebody could totally own your computer and you would never know. The government could actually mess with all the computers that have Intel chips everywhere. It's totally shady, and it's totally a closed source mystery. No one knows what the hell's in there except Intel people, and they've kept it a secret for this long.
And the extra danger is that because we know that it's Minix, it means that fairly arbitrary code can run on this thing.
Yeah, it's
not like you have to write...
no longer do you have to write, so, you know, it's like, it's Minix. We can just write some Minix apps to run on this thing.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, so recently, there was an actual for reals vulnerability discovered in this. That's the most threatening one yet. There have been a few in the past that were related. I think there was a Ring -2 one a couple years ago in 2015. I watched a video about where they used this like memory remapping thing with like HCI or something or I forget what it was, but it was a really weird thing. It really wasn't like it could get you, but it wasn't, you wouldn't have to worry about it too much, right? But this is basically a USB threat. So, and it's totally legit. Use a thing called JTAG, which I always forget what it stands for.
Joint Test Action Group.
All right, so JTAG is basically this sort of universal connector protocol kind of thing for debugging hardware, right? So let's say you're working on a circuit board with a CPU on it, and you got to debug that CPU like one instruction at a time. You plug in something to the JTAG port, and you plug that into your actual computer that you're writing code on, and now you can debug the instructions running on the CPU on this little tiny board, right? So that's the kind of thing you use JTAG for. So just about every circuit board out there that has a CPU that's, you know, made by a company has some sort of JTAG connector for people to develop and debug things happening on the board. So they discovered an Intel management engine vulnerability where you buy a USB device, right? Because I guess the management engine has access to USB.
This is a consequence of the fact that USB, Universal Serial Bus, that's what it stands for, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
has become the universal bus. So anything that would have been done in a proprietary or different way for this kind of like I/O that isn't network I/O has all become USB.
So now you can quite realistically create some software, put it on a USB stick, plug it into the USB port of any computer with an Intel chip that has the Intel Management Engine, which is effectively all of them, or almost all of them.
And then use JTAG to get access to IME.
And now that computer is your computer, and no amount of reformatting the hard drive is going to make a difference.
So what's even funnier is I saw this tweet, and I think they already deleted it, but USB, right? You plug it in, and you can unplug it. It's actually pretty trivial to make a USB physical device that once you plug it in, a little hook comes up. Now you can't unplug it. And there's no way to remove it, sort of physically removing the actual
Well, you
connector.
could, I mean, if someone did that's like on the front port on my computer.
Just disable the front port.
Well, I could disable the front port, or I could just open the computer and cut the wire that goes to the front port, or unplug the front port from the motherboard. But if you go into the back port, I'd have to like pry, I had to like use pliers or something and yank it out.
Now here's why. Now again, I don't know the full details of this vulnerability. Like all we know is that it's a proof of concept that seems legit.
And the point is, if you put the hooks in, for somebody to go get pliers, it's the time it takes to own them is already passed.
Yep, the hooks are mostly just funny.
Yes,
but here is from my perspective, the kind of vulnerability that makes the kind of practical use of this kind of vulnerability that makes it terrifying. So I have this like Jellycomb mouse, right, for my laptop. It's this like cheapo wireless mouse, has a USB dongle in it. You plug the USB dongle in. It's just a wireless mouse. That's how a lot of like mice and things work these days. Because of this vulnerability, if I were, say, China as a state actor, and I had a company that I had compromised that was selling cheap USB wireless mice, the dongle, I might pull a vulnerability in there that would trigger JTAG to take over IME and then use that solely for the purpose of compromising random number generation when people are generating a cryptographic key.
Yeah, I don't know why you're so racist against China, but I see no...
Okay, fine. Russian state actor, the U.S. government as a state actor.
Not just state actor, right? It's like, what's stopping like just Logitech from delivering a bunch of shitty mice? We've seen, Lenovo, we've seen Sony with their, right? Big, real companies, not just knockoff crapo stuff, right? Real things that you would buy at Staples could theoretically be compromised and have evil spywares in a USB device. You could buy a USB stick from like SanDisk, right? Obviously, none of these companies that I'm mentioning have had any of these things happen. This is all theoretical, right? But the most trustworthy things you can imagine buying and plugging into your USB port theoretically could have some sort of thing, and then your computers are owned. The end.
And it's owned in a way that is literally impossible to detect.
Right. Now, so you can't detect it. But there have been many people recently figuring out and getting really close or close enough to solutions to removing IME from your computer. So you do something, and now your computer doesn't have IME anymore. It just has some blankness, and your computer still boots.
Now, again, too, all the things we're talking about assume that Intel is not a malicious actor.
Yeah.
But if you are at the point where your legitimate threat vector involves Intel itself being directly compromised, either you're a paranoid nut job or you are a super serious, for real James Bond style spy. And one of those is more likely than the other.
Yes.
You've got to trust someone.
I mean, you got to also have a good chip at some point. Right?
But that's kind of why I mentioned, when I said China or Russia, like they have a state actor, I'm not worried about a company like Logitech being directly corporate malicious actor.
Not too much, but I am worried
what
about,
I'm worried about is, say, the U.S. government going to a company like that and saying, we are forcing you to do this, and also you'll be arrested if you tell anyone.
I'm more worried about
or,
just, like,
what is more
incompetence at the factory.
Somebody
deploys something
What
onto
is way more common, this happens kind of often, USB stick, like, company does a promotion and gets a USB device, that gets outsourced to a company, that company itself is not corrupt, they're just lazy, and someone hacks that manufacturer's network and just gets malware injected into USB
You don't know who all the
making.
suppliers are for all the chips in that perfectly boring Logitech mouse you just bought. Who knows, like, something could be on there, and the mice work just fine, so they pass QA, and then people plug them in, don't even know anything's wrong. And then next thing you know, everyone who bought this mouse, this computer, is infected infected with like the most evil rootkit imagine. It could, and you wouldn't even know. You could not know for years, right? This Intel management thing's been around since 2008. It's like 9 years, and we're starting to figure stuff out here because hardware is so complex and the shit is so low level that, you know, it's real hard to figure shit out.
Yep.
There could already be stuff we don't even know.
And in the long run, in terms of catching these sort of things earlier, it's really hard to say, because a lot of the neckbeards will argue that, yeah, back in the old days, I got a full schematic of my processor when I bought a computer. And it's like, yeah, because your computer was a 286. Welcome to the modern world.
Your computer had 10K of RAM.
Yeah, like you could make a physical book that explains what's going on inside of that chip.
You could draw all the bits onto a piece of paper and keep track of them with a pencil.
So this is all just interesting. That's really all we have to say right now. Just be aware that all this exists. And I don't know. I'm curious if anyone out there is actually in the kind of situation where this is a legitimate threat vector that you actually care about directly.
Right. I mean, you know, it's just something to be aware of when you see all the talking going on. And the only recommendation I can make to you is to always update your shit. Right? Yep. Don't do anything that's not trustworthy.
Don't plug in random USB devices that you find on the street.
Right, and also there's a thing you can buy online. I have it. It's called a USB condom, and it's exactly what it sounds like. And basically, what it is.
What if I put my exploit in there? There's a tiny chip you don't know about. Did you take it apart and see?
No.
Okay.
But I gotta trust somebody.
Yeah.
And what it is basically it's USB on one side and USB on the other side. And if you're gonna charge your device, because hey, guess what? I guess my iPhone doesn't have an Intel CPU, but a lot of phones do. You know, there are phones out there with Intel CPUs, but not just phones. Any device with an Intel CPU, right? Not just computers. You know, you plug in. You're gonna charge something with USB, and you don't trust the USB port at the airport or wherever, at Starbucks or wherever the hell you are, right? You plug your USB cable into the condom, and then the condom into the charging port, and that basically blocks all data. And now only electricity is coming through to charge your device. So now you can trust that you're only charging your device and you have not been compromised by that USB port that you decided to get a charge from at wherever you are. And that is a good thing to have.
All right, I think we're done.